Welcome to Different Gravy, not just another Sheffield Wednesday podcast. I'm one of the hosts, Richard Miller, and my co-host, well, the perfect podcast host would be smart, funny, and have a beautiful, sonorous voice. Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. I don't know who he is, but he's a real dead ringer for Dr. Luke Gledall. How are you doing today, Luke?
Brilliant, Rich. Thank you. Thank you for the lovely intro. Thank you for making a reference to something which I was hoping to make a reference to later. We'll put a pin in that. But yes, thank you. It's great to chat to you once again about this awful football team we support.
Yeah, a little before we get just get in there and wallow in the mire. A little tribute to the dearly departed Monsieur Loaf felt pertinent. But you're well.
Yeah. I'm doing okay. It's been a long week, but here we are at the weekend, so that's nice.
Yeah.
Respite. How do you pronounce that word?
I think I've heard both.
Okay. Well, either one of those you want to pick for your own purpose, then go with that.
I think I like respite more, but it's written down as respite, isn't it? There's an E on the end.
Yes.
So I don't know. It could go either way.
It could.
Do we want to get into some news?
Define want.
Have we set ourselves a weird obligation to do this on a weekly basis?
Yes, we have, and let's go for it.
Yeah, in that spirit.
Breaking who-who's.
Breaking who-who's.
A lot of who-who's that were broken.
I've done a bad headline that only works written down. No sign last week, but this week, a very different story. And that story with an EY, because we signed Jordan's story.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a what's the story, Morning Glory or Jackanory, depending on whichever path you want to take on that one. But yes, Jordan's story. Following, let's just kind of look chronologically. We had a little bit of a roller coaster with a brief linkage to Danny Bart.
Yeah, we had a dalliance. We dipped our toe in the water, with Danny Bart, as it were. And sort of gazumped, as seems to be very easy to do in our current predicament. Although, so what did you... So obviously would have been a decent link in the same way as Beavers was a decent link. Somebody that we know well enough to be fairly confident in them coming in. Mm-hmm. But then it feels like Sunderland have done quite a lot of what we've done in the past recently, throwing slightly too long contracts at people that are a bit long in the tooth and end up paying for somebody that's not doing very much for you. And in a way, are we slightly relieved that Wednesday haven't done it this time? We didn't give him that extra time. That seems to be the difference, doesn't it? I think that he was given another option of a year at Sunderland that we weren't willing to go to that length of deal.
Could be, yeah. I mean, I do wonder about whether we will get to the point of being like Sunderland in the future, and by that I mean kind of replicating their timeline, but also maybe at this point looking like, for them, I don't mind jinxing it because I don't care about the Mackhams, but but having their success in the future, and I mean that kind of seems to go down the road of basically. Do you seem to just go down the road long enough with FFP to the point where you can eventually spend money again? Is that how it works?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, because I don't know how it's kind of like spending money becomes some type of addiction that we attend. We've attended FFP Anonymous, but that's hilarious because everybody at FFP Anonymous knows who we are and we know who they are as well. But I don't know how you get out of such a hole, and that's the problem with FFP, right? How do you start again? How do you start that cycle again?
Because the only way to make any money in football is selling players outside of being in the Premier. Mm-hmm. So if you're not allowed to really buy anyone of any value, then your chances of somehow hauling yourself out of the hole you've dug are slim to none.
But I mean, it's weird because I mean, we still pay pretty. We've got some players on some fairly handsome salaries.
Yeah,
you imagine.
Yeah,
but I mean, I don't know the nature and spirit of competition. That there's plenty of teams who are competent in this league and can be competent and have decent players that we can probably look on admiringly at. With a series of with envy towards them. Like there is going to be a series of players that we either just miss out on or we can't get.
Yeah.
So,
but then, I mean, looking at it, I know he's only on loan for 6 months, but who knows what his kind of future looks like. Story looks like a decent option. I mean, he's played a good amount of championship football this season. He played most of the last 2 seasons for Portsmouth. It just seems to be Lowe's come in and been told he has to move people on before he can bring anybody in. And unfortunately, Jordan Story's one of those ones he doesn't quite fancy as much.
Yeah, so maybe that's a big advantage to us. It's a different. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the whole thing with Danny Bard is because of his past history and I think his kind of presence.
Yeah, he's
a much more
figure, isn't he? Whereas
very much so.
Story looks young. He's 24, which is a decent age. But he's got a boyish look to him.
So, Rich, you're about to cross a bridge and you come across a troll who says that, you can only answer if you solve his riddle. And you say, sure, I'll have a go at that riddle. The riddle he says to you, if Alex Hunt looks 12, how old does Jordan Story look?
14? 15 maybe?
That's a decent answer. I mean, it does look a bit like he's the type of friend who knocks around with Alex Hunt and he's the one who started to grow some hairs on his top lip a bit quicker and it started smoking before the other kids, possibly. It has that certain kind of vibe to it.
He might be the one they mistakenly believe would get served.
Yes, yeah, exactly. The one you send in to get the white lightning, the local off license. So there are some great Zen riddles in life, like what is the sound of one hand clapping if a tree falls in the woods? But genuinely, he's a very young looking man. Is Jordan's Story, but it seems to be someone who's on the come up. And I mean, the words that seem to come from Preston fans seem to be very, very positive. I couldn't really see many negatives. He sounded like he had a small bad spell by the sound of it, but something he seemed to turn around and then picked up with a series of decent performances. So no, a decent acquisition, but like it's a different profile to Danny Bart, which is why we've kind of had those two in comparison within the week. Danny
Bart, you'd see dropping in the middle of that 3 and being the kind of leader of the defence, wouldn't you? Very much a straight swap for Hutchinson or Dunkley, whereas Story looks like he'll be more of a kind of body alongside one of those guys. But who knows? I mean, stranger things have happened. He might have that commanding element to him. We'll have to see. We also might not see him at all because who knows with Darren Moore and his choices in these things.
Well, I mean, interesting that, I mean, we've had a decent, that kind of jumps ahead. There's a bit more news to talk about, but, we had an unchanged lineup. I mean, I would naturally think someone coming in, they wouldn't start. Interesting enough, though, as a comparison, and while we're doing this comparison, Danny Bart did start and get a clean sheet for Sunderland today.
Yeah.
So it can be done. It can be done. Yeah. Let's kind of move on to there's a couple of linkages. Should we do a couple of linkages and then we can talk about the interesting?
I do like the idea of What's the Story, Jordan Story being his song, by the way. We need a defender to sweep up. Wow, what's the story, Jordan Story? Yeah, I think there's legs in it. I think there is.
Sure. What else can we talk? Like a couple of linkages.
Oh, go on. Sorry. Well, okay, you're doing linkages. Okay, so that's not because I was going to say in terms of like Danny Bart, it was like we heard about it. It was going to happen, then it didn't happen. All in the space of probably about 48 hours. And similarly, we had the Nathaniel Mendes-Lang storm in an espresso cup. That was. He's actually going at the end of the week. He's packed his bags. He said goodbye. And then within like a couple of hours, like, oh, by the way, he signed an extension. But yeah, let's do linkages.
So there's been a long link with Rayhan Tulloch, which I think was kind of brought up again by the press. Like they asked more about that, and then it seemed to be kind of interesting because I think they were saying like it wasn't one which he didn't seemingly didn't pour any kind of cold water over it. Yeah, kind of just maybe said a bit more information about him being a player that he knows about. Like more says, I know Ray. I don't want to speak about Ray too much because he's not our player. But then carries on, says someone I've known for a long, long time. And is somebody I've known and worked with over the years, really. I've known him a long, long time. Is someone I don't talk about too much because he's not our player.
He had him on loan at Donny as well.
Yes, there is that as well. So it may be 2 + 2 = 5, but it seems more comfortable for in the resulting there. The other one we're hearing a lot about is Tyrese John Jules, who I was going to initially make the joke that he's Danny John Jules' son, but he's actually Danny John Jules' nephew.
Oh, there you go.
Like legitimately. So I think I'd actually seen his name before because he's a promising Arsenal youngster.
Yeah.
And the local press seem to think that he's pretty close through the door. So I guess.
Yeah. Well, he's had the Catholic Church in terms of naming their new pope have the chimney that they watch and the smoke goes from black to white. The Sheffield Wednesday equivalent is watching at Chansiri's follower list on Instagram, and Tyrese John Jules has had the nod. The smoke on Instagram has turned white where it comes to the choosing of our new pope. So Pope Tyrese the First, I believe, of his name. I can't imagine there's been another Pope Tyrese. So he's another one of this nebulous forward.
Well, that seems the same thing with Tulloch as well.
Yeah. What does that mean? Because presumably Shadipo's.
I don't know.
So does that mean he's going to play wing back?
I guess so, because there's no other place for him to play, right? And he's not a Canberra, he's not a Gregory, he's not a Windus.
No.
I mean, So is in that nebulous position.
He is.
But, has finally had a streak. It might be the last we see of him after today for a bit.
But So doesn't seem to have come up for consideration as a wing back. I don't think we've seen him play wing back necessarily, have we? It's always been up top.
I don't know.
I thought so, but maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, intriguing.
So the Mendes Lang thing.
Yeah,
I wanted to end on that because I'm still confused.
So I think we must have given him till the end of January, which seems bizarre because he only signed in November or something like that. But he now has signed an extension till the end of the season. So
then Alex Miller seemed to talk on Twitter about him being embarrassed he's like, oh, it's going to be a long couple of days for me, because he was expecting a series of dogs abuse from people on Twitter, on socials. So he was kind of saying that he had decent sources for this information. But I thought he was kind of coming out and then saying that
there was nothing in it.
There was he's been given some false information.
Oh, right. Okay.
Because Moore kind of came out and said that the whole thing's been put to bed, but I don't know if he's putting to bed the rumors or whether it was actually something in with the contract. I'm still confused as to what happened. I don't know either way. I mean, whatever happens, I thought it was funny. It was entertaining.
Yeah.
And it was probably not too unlike something that Sheffield Wednesday would do. Do you remember how bizarre it was was it the year before the promotion season that James O'Connor left? Because he had a contract that went to the end of December.
Yeah.
But that was something that we only found out about literally just as he left.
So I'm now sort of tracking this back now. So he tweeted on the 20th, 8:00 on the 20th. He tweeted, exclusive, understand Nathaniel Mendes-Lang's Sheffield Wednesday contract ends this weekend. Player keen to stay, deal yet to be agreed. League One rivals, Wigan Athletic amongst the clubs waiting for NML off Wednesday's hands. And then what time are we talking that he replied to himself at 10 in the morning the next day? So basically barely 12 sleeping hours later. Sheffield Wednesday nail Nathaniel Mendes-Lang to a fresh contract despite Wigan Athletic interest. Understand he signed an extension. So, but you're so weird. It's so weird. But
it could genuinely be the situation. It could genuinely be what's being reported has happened. It could also be false. I don't know. It is strange. It doesn't really happen at other clubs. It does kind of happen at Sheffield Wednesday.
Well, we have this weird thing where we don't really put much faith in players, do we? Like, we don't give out longer like youth players get the bare minimum contracts unless you're Cameron Dawson. It's just, I don't know. And then that's the case. Like, oh, we're taking a risk. So he trains with us for months and months and months. He was there from pretty much the start of the season, Mendes Lang. Eventually we take a risk, we take the risk of signing him. And if we only gave him 2 or 3 months, that's kind of wild, really. But there we go.
So anyway, bit of a crazy week in the transfer window for Sheffield Wednesday. Do you think we'll see a signing by the time we speak again?
I don't know. I find it odd that we've been linked with forward players because we don't use the ones we've got.
No. Is Best Hippo and Show like injured right now, or is he just shit?
Show Hippo, I believe, is injured. That's what they said.
Okay.
They said on the commentary today.
Okay. Or not C, which is shit and injured.
Yes. So shall we get to today's game? Shall we move along? Do you think?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yes, and as you mentioned, an unchanged team. In some ways makes absolute sense. Most people would say you should be rewarded for a win by getting to keep your place. I think I would generally tend to agree. I do wonder about this, hindsight 2020, the subtitle of the podcast. I do. Looking at last week, it was a terrible defensive performance and a really good attacking performance. We kind of gone in with that same team, and I suppose at the end of the day, I got a very similar kind of performance, really. I just think there might have been a case, having brought a defender in, there might have been a case for looking to shore up the defence. But then there was a strange alchemy, particularly to that left side. I think the most obvious person to change in the back three is Johnson. But he did play a big part in the game going forward last week. So it would be harsh to drop him as well. So I don't know. It's hard to tell what's the best option. But I think generally pleased to see an unchanged starting lineup.
Mm-hmm.
You'd agree?
No, yeah, I totally agree. It's just funny to think about with to think about from the position of hindsight, the position of covering the end of this game of football, of thinking like, yeah, it's what you said is pretty darn accurate, and also kind of foreshadows a lot of what happens today.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah. Well, because we didn't really do it. I did listen back to the previous podcast, and we sort of made mention in the first half in passing that maybe there would be some criticism for Sam Hutchinson, and we didn't really get into it. But I think the goal kind of, again, he absolutely would start. Why wouldn't you start him again the second time? But there's rickets in this defence. And it's going to keep happening. But this was a great start to this game and a great first half of football for Wednesday. So I think probably if we can try and look at that in isolation without letting the result taint it, there was some really good stuff to enjoy prior to.
Sure. And let's just start with a moment of reverence, because Oxford United had a minute's applause for the deaths of both Meatloaf and Louie Anderson. Of course, I jest. It's not really for Paul Hinshelwood, a former player, but
Some
strange do you want to regale our Louie Anderson story, Rich?
I don't know if I will. Luke and I, on our travels, we've done a couple of road trips in the United States, and one of the ones we did, we did a bit of time in Las Vegas, and then made our way to Los Angeles. And in particular, we wanted to get to Los Angeles in time to go and visit the famous Comedy Store, see a night of comedic revelry. And they post up. There's a ridiculous list if you ever go to the Comedy Store. That kind of, I think everybody gets like a 10-minute or a 15-minute slot. And when you go to one of these nights where people just drop in, there is literally like 20 names, and you probably have heard of about half of them. They've been on the telly. So we had people like Nick Kroll. We had the now disgraced Chris D'Elia, who I very awkwardly made eye contact with backstage, which wasn't good. I think it was following him starting to saying how you doing to a couple of young ladies. Yeah,
that was very surreal. Anyway, him, Anthony Jeselnik was there.
Anthony Jeselnik. There was some folks.
There was some folks of note. Yes,
of note. But also, it was really long. Really, really long. We got there, and the night just wore on, and people sort of drifted out. We didn't really know what the deal was, but we ended up at the point where several comedians in a row were not taking to the stage. They were just sitting on the tables in front of us and just having a conversation with the very few people in the audience. And it came down to Luke and myself and another couple. We're not a couple, but another couple of people, but they happened to be a couple. I was forced to do a British accent for some reason. There was some fairly filthy talk. I believe a porn star was in attendance in the audience, and there was some talk of some sort of wild stage show maybe taking place. And during this odd dwindling number of people, I don't know how many people were officially in the crowd, how many people were comedians that turned up. Probably about half. It's probably about half and half at this stage, performers and audience. And Louie Anderson turned up at the back and had some conversation, some back and forth with the comedian on stage. And how did the conversation turn to my cute little butthole?
I don't know. I still don't know how it went there. I wanted to talk to you about it just so we can kind of fully regale it out. This doesn't really need to be on the podcast, I'm going to be honest with you, but I just... Well, it's also kind of funny as a story as well, and I thought you'd be someone who had a better recollection of events.
Well, so this is my memory of it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe there was some sort of saucy talk around the adult film actress and what
there was. That did happen. Yes, I can. I
then
concur.
The attention, the sleazy attention of the comedian, who happens to be Jimmy Kimmel's warm-up man, turned to these two British guys, and because I was the one that was responding to him, Luke clammed right up, really helpfully.
You're welcome. You're very welcome, Rich.
You sort of shrunk to the size of like sort of Kermit the Frog hanging on the edge of your chair.
My spidey sense-ometer was way off a check. There was just I'm someone who's naturally kind of very introverted and very kind of empathic, so I can kind of pick up on a lot of things that are happening, and I think other people just either turn it down or don't care. And I was just I felt like I was just completely overwhelmed by being. I felt like we were like circled upon. Yes.
And at some point, this comedian's quite acerbic, was quite mean to the other couple, was quite mean to the porn star lady, was quite mean to us, and the couple left. So I believe at this point we were the only audience, and that's now about 6 comedians to 2 people in the audience. And somehow the attention turned from the adult film actress to my own position in this situation, and Louie Anderson. I was offered up to Louie Anderson as some sort of bearing. He's come down. He made the effort.
Sacrificial lamb.
Some sort of sacrificial British lamb. And the kind of punchline to the evening basically was we decided enough was enough and we were going to get up and go out. And the comedian on the stage went, "Oh, you guys should count yourselves lucky. You got a one-on-one show." And then Louie Anderson, as the kind of punchline for the evening, said, "What did I get? Clean fingers," because his digits were going to be placed somewhere about my person. And then as we were kind of leaving in a sort of cloud of slight aggression, I don't know whether we were supposed to just stay until all of the comedians who turned up had been on the stage for as long as they wanted to. But it was like 2 a.m. or something wild like that. It was was enough. And there was kind of a bit of like aggression in the air as we were leaving, and the last thing was Louie Anderson saying to us, "And Benny Hill sucks." Because that was their example of British humor. To which we both said, "Yeah,
there it is, yeah."
So
that is not the crown jewels of our cultural heritage. So
no, exactly. But R.I.P. Louie Anderson. His turn as Zach Galifianakis' mother in Baskets is truly joyous. But that was a very frightening evening. What were we talking about? Football? Was there a thing with football?
They had a minute's applause for their
minute's applause for Louis.
But I had no context, so that's why I made a stupid joke about it being the death of Meatloaf and Louie Anderson. Because that seemed a similar thing that a club with only 3 stadiums, sides of the ground, would do. Can we, while we're just talking pithy stuff, we'll get into the meat of this game. Rich and I maybe aren't so looking forward to covering this one because of what happened at the end. But wouldn't you think that if you had a side of the ground that had a car park, that you'd put up a ball net? Because, I mean, they do that at goals and other reputable five-a-side football centres.
Possibly. I think it's okay. You just get more balls and you just keep recycling. You'll be fine.
I mean, Rob Staten and John Pearson today did bemoan the fate of a Ford Fiesta, which seemed to get it on a couple of occasions from wayward shots. Nice. So talked about how they didn't have a ball boy in the car park. They had to rely on the policeman. So that was some of the pithy talk that I'm coming out with, and also that Rob and John came out with on the commentary today.
Yes, but yet again, a team amazed to be playing Sheffield Wednesday. But we turned up. We looked like Sheffield Wednesday for a bit of this game.
For most of it,
it's hard to believe now, Luke. But I've written this down. I was I had the Oxford commentary, and then at halftime I listened to Oxford Comma by.
I was going to say, who gives a fuck about Oxford commentary?
Yeah, by Vampire Weekend. But the Oxford commentary, as impressive a side as we've seen at the Kazam this season. And then later, they just look massive.
Really?
Yeah.
In terms of like stature and players on the pitch?
Because we'd stopped them playing the ball out short, so they had to go long. And he said, "Oh, it goes long again into the land of giants." He said that as well.
Really? Because I actually would have thought like we're pretty even up to Oxford. No. And I actually felt that when we started at the end of the game, started playing it long, like it seemed to be a bit less successful, for an aerial bombardment period. But anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. You said you thought this was a good start. I actually thought like it was weird for a bit. So I thought there was a like lumbering start. I mean, it was interesting for some of the beginning because there was some very great moments, but it seemed across some weird air at times where those were the times in between the ball just being in the air. Like it was a scrappy start.
It was scrappy. It was so scrappy and a bit frantic at times. But I thought the quality that was there came from Wednesday.
Definitely, yeah.
And I don't know. It just looked like we had some ideas about things. Like there was a set piece routine from I think maybe our first corner in the 6th minute where Bannon played the ball back to Mendes Lang, and he played it into Johnson to get a shot away.
That was wonderful. I really like that as a set piece play. Like, I mean, the really sad thing about a lot of things we do that work on set pieces, they are very unique. Yeah. And obviously we never see them again.
No, that's it. That's
there's a fear of us being caught out by doing it again and people knowing what we're going to do, but we never even try to even figure out if that's something that they're wise to. But I love that, like Bannon, like spraying it across, like really crisp, low kind of ball into Mendes Lang. I think. Do you think the idea was initially for Mendes Lang to have a crack at that point?
Just crack it, and it ended up a little bit behind him, didn't he? So he improvised and got it back to Johnson. Unfortunately, he got a hold of the shot, but it was straight into the keeper's hands. He sort of gathered it
straight at the keeper.
Yeah, gathered it fairly easily. But we looked like we looked dangerous. We were hitting them over the top. Quite again. Hunt looked very involved all the way through. And then seventh minute, there was a big long pass from Bailey Peacock-Farrell. Gregory sort of took control of it, held it up for a little bit, and laid it off to Hunt, who played it into Luongo, and he tried to play a 1-2 with Gregory. And when that was closed off to him, he cut it back across the front of the penalty area to Bannon, and Bannon just guided his volley. He didn't smash it. He just kind of like steered it in the right direction and went through a crowd of players and sort of bundled into the goal.
What a wonderful goal. Like some of the interplay and the link up was just beautiful from Sheffield Wednesday. It's we deserved more. We deserved better from the good play that we had in this game, but definitely in the attacking play, some of those touches, some of the one touch, the link up plays, just beautiful. Like what a finish from Bannon as well. I mean, I think the goal is fantastic for the series of link up and the play that happened, because that's really good. But like, it's a very adept shot from Bannon. That's like a half volley, I think I want to say.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I think that's probably right. Sort of took it just off that first bounce and got. Yeah, I suppose I'm trying. Bundled is a bad word, but it wasn't absolutely motoring. He kind of made sure he picked his spot and got it there. It wasn't like a vicious strike. It was more like a kind of steering, an educated sort of steering of the ball into the blank space when there was a lot of players in the box. So the keeper wouldn't have had very much chance to react at all. But yeah, great start, great goal. Lovely build-up play, and not the only bit of nice build-up play we'd had to that point, and it sort of continued. The next note I've got is 13 minutes when that was Johnson and Mendes Lang combining, and Johnson managing to sort of work the centre back and get a cross over deep for Hunt, who got a good head on it. I mean, he headed it down. He sort of steered his header, but the keeper was Keeper got down well and saved it well.
I thought it was unfortunate, just the nature that it did land to Hunt. He's not a player who's known for his heading prowess.
No, it wasn't.
To the left of him was Gregory, who had far more want in that type of situation.
Yeah. But I thought for someone who's not the most natural header of the ball, I thought he did a nice job with it. I thought
he did. He
got the angle right. It just probably was lacking a little bit of pace, so that gave the goalkeeper a chance, and the goalkeeper did well to save it.
I love Johnson's work in that build-up for that. Like, he just a great tenacity and guile to just get it forward and to, shake off a couple of players in the process and put in a lovely ball into the box.
And brave to hold out to get the right moment for his cross. It could have very been either a poor effort, or he could have lost possession, which would have put us in a bit of.
And then the sickness of that chance is Hunt running back on kind of reply, and then he very cynically took the Oxford player out as they go on the counter. Took his yellow. Yeah, I thought it was a bit needless. I mean, you never know with these chances where they end up. But yeah, it's a bit of a sad note to a nice chance.
I suppose you'd rather make sure, though. I think there's moments in games when we don't make sure in those and then things escalate. So I can understand why. He's also, I think he trusts himself enough to know that he's not somebody that you're suddenly like, oh crap, he's on a yellow, so when's the red come in? He's not like a big tackler. He doesn't do much fouling. So I wasn't hugely worried. But yeah, I probably didn't need to do it. But maybe better to make sure, just in case.
Yeah.
So despite looking good going forward, I thought we looked shaky from the early set pieces. They had a chance very early on from a set piece. They had another chance on the 16th. They went really, really close. It was just a case of like, if anybody had made contact, it went right across the front of the goal at head height. It was just, I guess, sort of sheer luck that, or poor execution that stopped us conceding there. Speaking of set pieces and corners, Mendes-Lang almost scored straight from a corner in the 19th minute.
Yeah.
Causing a bit of a scramble and a bit of a lucky moment. I think the keeper sort of palmed it out, quite like our own Bailey Peacock Farrell palmed it out off, and it came ricocheted off a defender. But luckily for him, he managed to grab it before it went out of play, and it didn't result in a goal. But it could easily. It was one of those he didn't really know where it was going. And that's the point where I made the note about those two positive statements that the commentary had made about us. The next thing I've got is the penalty shout for Hunt. What did you make of that?
Can I just squeeze in a few more
Please do.
bits in between there? I mean, 21st minute, Mendes-Lang does a Harris, and by that I mean he does a regular Harris, an actual Harris, not perfecting the Harrises.
Yes.
Last time around. Just a general note. I said Oxford aren't looking too shabby going forward, but it really counters how complacent and shaky they looked at the back.
Yeah.
And that was, so that 27th minute, that brings me up to your notes, Rich. My comment was, is it a penalty? Penalty question mark. Beautiful work from Bannon in the build-up. What a lovely touch that was. Little kind of Cruyff dink on the edge of the box to bring in Hunt. I think it was a penalty.
I think
but I think Hunt did a very bad job with the chance.
Yeah, he should have sorted his feet out, but that doesn't change the fact he got past the player and he lunged in from behind and from the side and didn't get the ball, which was a penalty. They were sort of having a go at how he fell. They're saying, he fell in stages. But they thought it was a penalty on the commentary. And I agree. I think it was. I think it's the sort of one you're not going to get given because the ref can't see it very well from his angle. The contact's on the opposite side of the ball and the player. So you're relying on a linesman seeing it and being brave enough to make the call. And make the call, happen.
Yeah.
Because you've got a little Pol Pot in the middle, little dictator that doesn't want to hear anything. And
Hunt was an interesting one today because, I mean, I don't think in some ways I thought he was very good. It's again that dilemma of having players who are fantastic at getting into position and dangerous attacking positions.
Yeah.
But sometimes it doesn't come off with them doing anything in that situation.
He's quick. He's got bags of energy. He reads the game brilliantly, which means gets all these opportunities. But unfortunately, he's pretty much the last person you want to get those opportunities.
Yeah.
Not a goal threat, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But he'll keep getting those because all those other facets to his game are brilliant. Possibly like one of the best in the squad at reading when the momentum sort of shifts in our favour and kind of making himself an extra body. He's really good at picking his moments. And if Mendes-Lang or whoever's on the left wing-back position was half as good at that, you'd really want them in those places quite a lot of the time.
How do you think, I know I'm jumping ahead here, just as a general reading, I'm curious to see how you felt that Mendes-Lang did today. Because, I mean, the really funny thing was chatting with my oldest brother Andy about Mendes-Lang and saying, if this is the situation, did he put in a storming performance because he was, on the eve of trying to win a new contract? So it's a fun dimension to that. But you also wonder how much is after the Lord Mayor's show and not being able to consistently perform at certain levels. And also the opposition being like, we know he's going to play and we know he's going to be a danger. So therefore, how can we nullify him? It was a bit of a quiet affair from Mendes-Lang today.
It was, but then I think that's why we saw probably the best moments from that flank with Johnson. And that's probably making special efforts for Mendes-Lang. You can only do so many defensive steps to stop people, can't you? at the end of the day. You can't maintain all the threats. So I think it meant Johnson was able to stand up. And I think in the first half he did stand up, to be fair to him. But yeah, not a great performance from Mendes-Lang. Maybe his poorest in a Wednesday shirt. I think he's had better performances in bad Wednesday performances, whereas today a so-so performance in a fairly decent, at least a decent first half. He was fairly quiet.
It was interesting, and then that we can put a pin in that. There's plenty of things to come back to with that later.
The other person that's worth talking about in that same light is So. Because I made a note at that point to say So is not giving us as much as he did last week, but he is still doing a job. He was sort of providing a bit of, but he wasn't getting on the ball. He wasn't getting the same joy that he had early doors last week.
There has to be an element though with players who aren't performing as well, still coming up with like giving some allowance for other players in the pitch to do their thing. Like it's rarely to a man everybody has a 10 out of 10 game, you know?
I thought, speaking of people shining, I thought FDB looked so good this half. He just looked like a monster.
That's interesting because I think he was doing good work, but it wasn't something that I really noticed, I'm going to be honest. Especially in comparison to Bannon, who obviously scored and had some brilliant, amazing touches.
Yeah. We
really saw his quality. And Luongo, again, in the first half doing Luongo when he's on song, like I think we're very conscious of like the stuff he does to be a bit of a guy who loves a bit of a tackle in the middle of the park, but also like just his sheer quality that he can play some fantastic balls. He did a bit of everything.
There was one where he like barged past a man and then just hung a ball up for Mendes-Lang at just an incredible angle.
Yes, he did a lovely
really
diagonal.
A shame that Mendes-Lang didn't do anything much with it, unfortunately, because it
did well to control it. But then I think after then, play had caught up, and then it was difficult for him to do much. Yeah,
I just felt like last week he was just everything. He was grabbing everything. He was just seeing everything in front of him and just attacking everything, Mendes-Lang, and he just didn't seem to have that same kind of bite to his game, that kind of edge that made him so difficult to play against. But
I mean, did Oxford really play the high line for us to exploit?
Well, I think part of it was one of their main threats. I thought their right winger looked dangerous all game and looked to be getting in a lot. Their left wing didn't do anything that first half, really.
Oh, so much foreshadowing.
Sean, yeah. But I just got 31st minute, great run from Eli Bashiru, found by Palmer. He cuts it back for So, who sets himself, gets a decent shot away, but it's well saved. Hunt follows up, but unfortunately it's a really tame effort. 34th minute, another chance, a Hunt cross, maybe a bit behind Gregory, but I thought Gregory could have done a lot better with that. It's his sort of chance. You know, he does good things with those weird balls sometimes. Ask his missus. But then again, foreshadowing. 37th minute, another shoddy bit of set-piece defending, an unconvincing clearance leads to a rifled shot from Brannigan on the edge of the box. Hunt clears off the line. I also thought Hunt was maybe a little bit lucky to get that foul given for him. It was smart.
I didn't know. I thought that was... Okay. It was a little bit calculated, but also was incredibly brave. I mean, that's a huge shout.
It was brave for him to put the foot in there, definitely. But I think he kind of gambled on it. It didn't happen.
Well, I thought Hunt was, I said Hunt is so incredibly brave to put his body in the way of it, especially in the desperation in that moment as whoever the Oxford attacker, obviously is trying to get the ball.
Yeah.
It
was a high challenge.
It was a high 2-footed way it gave to get the ball.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit fortunate for him that he got away with that. But maybe also that's a little bit more foreshadowing for a few moments where I think Oxford were had a bit of home bias with the referee, I would say.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Later
Hunt was down. Hunt was down, but luckily he was okay, right?
Yes.
He went down for treatment.
He did go down for a spell. My next note is the equaliser. I don't know if you've got anything between there.
No, that's probably it. I mean, I think we thought that the game was just going to kind of peter out till half time. Didn't really see the difficult thing I find about Oxford is like clearly they are a side who are dangerous and who can do things. Yeah. but I don't really see where it comes from. So it's one of those where like it was hilarious. Like when I was in the UK, I went to see I got to see my nephew play football just before I left, and they came up against the side where I basically said, I don't get why this other team they're up against are top of the league. They're dirty, they're well organized, but they just hoof it forward and they seemingly do well with it. So it's a bit like I don't quite see the magic eye of Oxford United. I'm not seeing how this is coming together. Why they're so dangerous. Clearly, in someone like I think you've mentioned the right winger has some prowess.
Yeah,
Taylor seems to have a real tenacity to him.
Yeah, he's just a big awkward lump, isn't he?
Yeah, but he's got a knack of scoring as well. Yeah.
Well, the change they made in this game was they matched us up towards the end of that second half, the end of the first half. So they basically let the left back be left wing back because I think Hunt had been hurting them so much. I think they wanted to give him something to worry about and make him defend more. And we didn't react to it at all, really. And that's really the goal is a combination of people playing out of position and us not reacting. All those things happen. All those things combine to give them their goal. So we didn't react to the fact that they'd made that shift, because what we should have done is make Dele Bashiru tuck in and protect Hunt rather than playing as far up as he'd been doing. But we didn't react. We didn't change our plan. So the ball gets played in behind Hunt. Palmer goes out to his man. He defends him like a fullback. A centre-back pulled out wide like that really has to have two things in their head. They either make a foul or they get the ball. What can't happen is the ball gets out of there.
Yeah.
That's one of those situations as a centre-back, it just becomes you'll see Hutch give away silly fouls, but that's what you're supposed to do. Because the last thing that you're supposed to happen is a ball gets into the box when you're not there to defend it. But he defends him like a fullback and sort of ushers him down the line. He turns back, plays to an unmarked man because Hunt's got it filled in for Palmer. Dele Bashiru's not dropped back in like we should have reacted. That's what we should have done. But it means he gets all the space and time in the world to put a cross in. And they hang it up to the back post where we've got a left winger playing centre-back and a big awkward lump of a centre-back going up for a header against a left winger. Looks a lot like what happened with Marvin Johnson and Matt Taylor. It's no contest. He smashed him, got the ball in. It was just so easy. And it was kind of all of our gambles coming home to roost, unfortunately. So, yeah, disappointing, absolutely undeserved. They hadn't had a half of football that warranted a goal.
No.
We should have been 2-0, 3-0 up. But once again, our profligate finishing hurts us because we don't take the chances when we're there and we let in so many easy goals.
Yeah.
In
that chance, was it Luongo who was trying to come out to try and close down the cross?
Slowly, yeah.
Yeah, so that was the first mistake. I mean, I guess I'm just going to have to jump ahead and say this now. I guess, like, the problem really becomes, it feels strange that with Sheffield Wednesday, we've had some restrictions placed on us. But the thing with transfers and budgets, but then the biggest restriction seems to be is what Darren Moore is doing with said money. And, I mean, we have been unfortunate with defensive injuries, but I still don't entirely see the nature of assembling a team to just be like, we're going to play with 3 centre-backs and then we're going to convert Palmer, less so, and more Marvin Johnson to there. Marvin Johnson's had questions over him heading the ball defensively.
Yeah.
Marvin Johnson looked very good going forward today. Can we still afford to have that model? Or do we just accept that we are an attacking team in that mentality? We're not really, we're being very profligate, as you've said.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, yeah, Johnson is not a defender, and he can't defend crosses. He should have at least challenged for that ball.
Yeah.
And he didn't.
No, it was very disappointing to see how easy it was to score that goal. I don't have much in the way of notes until Windus comes on in the second half.
Okay. Well, I didn't really make any kind of halftime things. I find that typically our podcast performance is kind of a bit like Sheffield Wednesday.
Forget there's
the second half, yeah.
Sometimes on
52nd minute, close chance for Oxford. But we countered, and then like Luongo had a low shot save from outside the box.
Yeah, that was
then sub for, so comes off for Windus. A decent sub. Rob Staten pronounced Windus.
Weird.
Yeah, like Findus crispy pancakes. Do they still make Findus crispy pancakes?
I believe they do, yeah.
When was the last time you had do you enjoy the Findus crispy pancakes?
I believe I will have done at some point, but it's a long time since I had it.
I remember being a kid and had a friend called Ben Rogers, and I went to his house, and he loved the Findus crispy pancake, and he just said he'd tell me just how much he loved them. I remember having one with him, like the cheese and ham ones, and I'm like, I was thinking, this is a bit shit.
They're not good, are they? I think, that's generally a kind of boiling hot pocket of disappointment.
It's just a lot of cheese, isn't it? Just wrapped in breadcrumbs.
It's probably not even cheese. It'll be like analog.
What's that? What's analog?
Analog dairy product, or like analog cheese flavored product.
I thought you were saying analog like it's a scientific term for like blue whale smegma or something.
No, that's what like pizzas from like Iceland for like you get 3 for 75p or whatever. More often than not, that's not cheese. They call it analog cheese because there's no dairy or anything. It's just like yellow strands of protein that melt a bit like cheese, basically.
Yeah. It was strange pronunciation.
I would just call it vegan.
And like it kept coming up, because he kept talking about Josh Windus, and he's like, especially like it was really uncomfortable with saying, like Rob Staten was there going, oh, you got your Bannons, you got your Winduses. What strange. This is the last thing I'd think anyone would have difficulty pronouncing in a season of Corbanu.
Yeah, having trouble over Josh Windus.
Josh Windus.
Do you think? I wonder. You know how you can do bird's eye potato waffles? You can do them in the toaster. I wonder if you could get away with.
You can do them in the toaster because they're waffly versatile, can't you, Rich?
Well, I wonder if you could get away with doing a Findus crispy pancake in a toaster.
That would probably spill, and you'd probably get it would probably ruin all the elements, getting it scarred with all analog. Have analog scarred the toaster.
I'll see what you've done here. You've let your analog get all over your elements. That's what you've done. Didn't you read the instructions? The first page. Don't get your analogs on your elements. Dear me.
Sorry, honey. Yeah, I've just got this guy come round. He's a Cockney toaster repairman. Apparently, all the toaster repairmen are Cockneys in the area. It's weird. Maybe it's a big trade, and there's too many toaster repairmen in London, so they have to come to the rest of the country. Yeah, sorry. You get back to your TV. I'll let him out.
Bring her in. I'll show her what you've done. I'll show her. He's put it. I told him. I mean, you won't believe this, love. He's put a Findus in the toaster.
keeps me in a job, doesn't it?
Keeps me in a job, I'll tell you. It's a good job. It's a good job people are as stupid as you, because that is what pays the mortgage. I tell you.
I've got a mate, John Findus, and I'm always like, oh, your family's keeping me employed. My family.
Your crispy wallets are keeping my wallet nice and full of crispy notes. Anyway, Silaso is dispatched with.
Be gone.
Josh Windus comes on. The 60th minute.
Like Findus a goal, Josh. And guess what? He done Findus.
Once again, he has an almost immediate impact, does Josh Windus. I can't stop saying it now. A lovely drive by Deli Bashiru, laid out for Hunt, who plays the ball into the box, and it's kind of an ambiguous ball because Windus and Gregory are right alongside each other, but Gregory obviously gives Windus a shout, and his first touch is just to lay it into his path, into Windus's path, and he just rifles it home into the far post. Oh, it's a great goal. It's really lovely build-up play. It's a really fine finish. And once again, his involvement in goals per minute on the football pitch is ludicrous so far this season. But
I mean, at some point he's going to get to the level of fitness where he will start a game. But I mean, I just love his sub appearances.
It is nice. He's got this super sub thing down.
It really does.
Unfortunately, the team has another Wednesday trait to chalk up to in our massive long book of traits. We got carried away. We got carried away with the fact we scored a goal and forgot that the game keeps happening. And Oxford pretty much just went straight up the other end and scored another equaliser.
Possibly the worst goal, the most fortuitous,
gross and scrappy,
skanky, awful goal.
There's because it was kind of like a bundled tackle block thing. Then there was it a cross or a shot or something that got deflected?
It was a shot that got deflected.
But it was a terrible shot. The fact it went at right angles into the middle of the box. It would have been a shot that would almost not hit the corner flag. That first effort. And it bounces at the feet of Taylor. I thought borderline would Taylor be offside? I haven't seen it again.
Well, that's what Peacock Farrell was claiming for. But I mean, where was Hutchinson?
Well,
because Hutchinson was behind to get to the point where he got the final touch on it. I mean, it is Taylor's goal.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. But I mean, Hutch was there for that. Peacock Farrell put his hand up in protestation to say it was offside. And
he did make an initial save. It just went straight out again and bundled over the line.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was bullshit for us, and it was bulls for them, bully for them.
Yeah,
are they all the bulls?
The bulls, yeah.
Yeah, and he's and Taylor is a tenacious player, and he just kept going at it, kept attacking it. It reminded me a bit of Neil Mellor.
Yeah.
Neil Mellor against MK Dons, just being like, I'm just going to go for this.
Yeah. If I go for this full throttle, momentum's on my side, and it's likely to go my way. I thought. There'll be time to do it. I thought Hutch had a terrible game today. This was bad defensively. He did not help out his fellow non-defenders very much. But I did enjoy his little jaunt he did up the field. I can't remember when that happened, but
that was good. That was second half. He did he did a 40-yard stroll, didn't he?
He did.
Cockney stroll.
And then pooed his pants and fell over.
Yeah.
Matt Taylor scores again. Just charge up the field.
Was he got 14, 15 goals for the season or something ridiculous? Matt Taylor?
If he scored a scrappier one than that, I'd not like to see it, and also I would like to see it at the same time, because this was sort of comedy football in a way. If you weren't directly involved, if it wasn't a pang straight in the heart, it would have been funny. We then spent the next sort of 10 minutes or so very much under the cosh. I thought it felt like chance after chance.
Yeah.
So the best of those probably the 70th minute, but just before that they had a penalty shout where their own defender went on a charge up the field. I thought it would have been very harsh, but unfortunately, Johnson he's a handsy defender. He's a bad defender. He lets things
and he's a handsy defender.
And he grabs a hold of people, and when you do that in the box, you're just always asking the question. You're always giving a player an opportunity to go down. You're always giving the referee a chance to blow a whistle, but it didn't happen, thankfully. But they had a really good shot that was going for the top corner, and it was a great save by Bailey Peacock Farrell at the 7th minute. They also went close from the corner. That was the one where Taylor sort of almost tried to bundle Bailey Peacock Farrell over the line, which I don't think would have been given, but it just showed, again, it was a chance and it was close.
Yeah, and then the referee said nothing about that. The official said nothing about that. That was poor. Another poor moment, I'm going to say, 73rd minute, Bannon gets ragged around by one of their players, their number 8, in the middle of the park, basically tugs his shirt and then just thinks, well, the referee's not doing anything about this, so just keeps doing it, basically, and just throws him around.
Oh, but
And it was a
Brannigan could have had a yellow card after 5 minutes today. He could have been off 4 or 5 times. He's constantly fouling. He's diving into every tackle like he wanted to do a murder. It was insane that the ref never called him up for anything in the whole game.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Bannon gave him we're skipping ahead slightly, but when Bannon got booked, he'd fouled Brannigan. And he said, well, he pointed up to about 6 different things Brannigan had done. I said, walking infringement, Brannigan has somehow avoided a card all game, but Bannon gets a yellow for fouling him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where that home bias really came from. I think it was strange because their commentary was talking about us being so physical, but they were dirty.
They're a dirty side. Well, they're a Carl Robinson
dirty.
Carl Robinson sides are dirty. He's a dirty man. You know, his sides are dirty.
He never cleans that skin-tight sweater of his. He's just a filthy boy.
Yeah.
Sam Winnall came on. My sister, to add to the foreshadowing, texted me and said, Winnall will score. I didn't rise to it, but I was hoping she would be wrong.
She was wrong as well.
Yeah, we made a great sub, didn't we, Luke? Everyone's excited to see Jaden.
We can, you know, we take out some of the gaps in this, and I don't think there was that long a gap, but it felt like an eternity between me looking at Rich on the Zoom call and being like, are you being serious? Like, no, you're being sarcastic. That was a terrible substitution.
Howler.
Because I think, well, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, we're playing with 3 centre-backs, none of whom are natural centre-back. Well, maybe 1, maybe 2 to push. Liam Palmer, but the real weakness there is Marvin Johnson. So we need someone to come on and like Mendes Lang. I don't think was typically doing that, but I think the substitution idea to replace Mendes Lang with Brown is a poor one, especially when precursed by or talked about and commentated about on the Radio Sheffield commentary, saying that that's a more defensive substitution. Brown is so bad. Brown is awful.
So bad. Let's bear in mind the last time he played for us, what he did. Like, one of the worst own goals I've ever seen.
Why didn't we bring... I'd much rather see Patterson.
Yeah, Patterson dropping into the centre-back position and either Johnson or Palmer coming out to the left makes more sense. Or Story coming on and putting Johnson out on the left makes more sense. That both of those are
better options
than bringing disaster that is Jaden Brown. I don't ever want to see him play for us again unless he's literally the only person, the only body we have left. He's terrible. And he missed an absolute sitter as well, just to add to his uselessness. He did nothing defensively and he missed a sitter.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was wow. What a chance that was. So that's the next point in my marks. The 77th minute. Oh my word. Hunt has it on the right. He stands up a brilliant cross. And of all people, Barry Bannon steps up and does an incredibly well-cultured, cushioned header back into the mixer.
Cushioned little header down.
It was wonderful. And then comes out, and then Brown's there, and you think he's got to put it away. I don't know how he missed.
It's one of those where you feel like almost any touch takes it over the line. Like there's nothing between him and the goal line. The ball is at a nice height, and I don't know what he does. He ends up
it's acrobatic. Like he kind of falls over to put it wide. He fails at both standing up and putting the ball in the net.
Yeah.
It's a double fail for him.
Yeah. Oh, awful missed chance, and kind of the death knell for us getting anything out of the game, really, it turns out. That's when Bannon got... The next thing that happens in my notes is Bannon getting booked, which happened in the 80th minute.
Mm-hmm.
And Bannon getting booked. Brannigan should have been booked before, but wasn't. 85th minute, we had an incredible clearance by Liam Palmer, but we
led to a corner.
From the corner.
So interesting that you said that Hutchinson had a bad game. I really want to say we had about 2 chances in very quick succession, which came from the right wing, from their right winger. We didn't really have anything to counter them. The idea being that we bring on Jaden Brown. Jaden Brown was massively out of position. for the chance before that, and also the chance which they put in for Palmer to put it wide to make that great clearance for a corner, and then we conceded from that. So really, my villain of the piece is Jayden Brown. I'm going to be honest with you.
I would agree. It's just I just feel like Hutchinson's failing in his role to be the kind of the adult in the room in that defence, because quite often he's doing reckless things or bad headers that go straight up. But Jayden Brown's the worst of all.
Mm. Did you hear for Hutchinson's press conference? He was on media duty.
I didn't see it
for the game before, but I was going to say, it's quite funny. I was listening to it, and then he was like, he was talking about like, we've built up this kind of attacking sense with like Palms and Johnson, and and then whoever can fill in the middle to kind of steady that ship, whether it's me and then he said, or Dom, or maybe Story. Completely forgot about Shea Dunkley. And I'm like, is that because you don't like Shea Dunkley? Or is that because Shea Dunkley is injured or he's never around? Or like, what? I don't know what that is, but it just really amused me.
Yeah.
But,
do you know where Dunkley's up to? I don't
know. He's injured to some degree. I mean, he's on Twitter all the time.
Yeah.
Hasn't strained his hands.
In my head, I thought we'd heard he was out for the season again. Was that just he's out for the year that we were told?
Oh, no.
It would make more sense if it was for the year, because obviously it would be a very long injury.
I'm actually just scrolling through. I'm scrolling through the post-match with Darren Moore here. I'm trying to see if there's anything. But we're bad at defending corners. They put it in a position where, they've drawn players out to create space for Winnall to meet it, and who else, I guess, would meet it at the near post.
They did, they all rushed the front post, didn't they? And then the ball was hung up at the front post, and we just didn't respond very quickly at all. There were just no bones about it. We concede too many goals from set pieces. It's something that is entirely in our power to practice more and get better at. We have a coach who is a defender of note. He had a big international career and played in the Premier League. He should be good at teaching people how to defend corners, surely.
Yeah.
So that's the 11th goal we've conceded from a set piece this season. It's too many.
So interestingly, from the Plymouth pre-match or post-match DM on Dunkley and Iorfa, Shea is going to be out for a little while. He's sustained a muscle injury. Dom is making wonderful progress, but so the medical team. I won't put a time frame on it, showing good signs. We hope to have him back real soon. So Iorfa is going to be back before Dunkley.
Right.
I mean, Iorfa's had more spells on the sidelines.
Just following the kind of, I guess, the path of things. So we have conceded 32 goals, and 11 of them are from set pieces. So a third of the goals we concede are from set pieces.
That's bad.
And those are bits where you have control. You can set up your men. Today we always kept two men outside the box, which was interesting. Didn't make any difference, but
it didn't make any difference.
But we did it. People quite often talk about that, don't they?
I guess they do. Yeah.
But
and then there's the two final chances for Wednesday before we.
Yeah, I mean, so Winnall celebrated like he'd won everything that it's possible for a human to win. He really went for that celebration. There was no acknowledgement of his 7 disappointing appearances for Sheffield Wednesday, but there you go. But there were still chances in this game.
Mm.
The time added on was 7 minutes, so a long period of time. We were probably the last of the 3:00 kickoffs to finish today.
Yeah. We started late, didn't we? I think we were like, it was 10 minutes past 4 by the time we got going with the second half. So,
but 90 plus 4, we had 2 gilt-edged chances. 90 plus 4, Hunt played another great crossover. It looked like the perfect height for Gregory. It looked like he just needed to head it, a simple header. And somehow he just lofted it over the bar. I don't know. It didn't look like he was stretching. It didn't look like he was above him or behind him. It just was bad. It was just bad.
Ballooned over.
And speaking of bad finishing, even worse was the 90 plus 6 minutes chance where Windus put this beautiful cross over. It was curling in at the back post anyway. It just needed a little flick, and Patterson misses at the near post. Very disappointing. Patterson was bad when he came on. That he had a really bad cross. That was one of the ones that probably hit the Ford Fiesta. Just absolutely lumped it out of play like he was clearing it, and then missed that sitter. Oh, so a 3-2 loss in a game where we were talking about how many we should get really at halftime.
Yeah.
Disappointing.
Yeah.
But essentially, I would say the same gamble as last week. Last week, we looked very, very porous at the back, but we got goals.
Today, and we looked dangerous going forward.
We had chances. We looked dangerous going forward, but we were just as porous at the back. And this time, we fell out the wrong side of a 5-goal thriller. Last week, we were the right side of a 6-goal thriller. We
got found out pretty massively at the going forward in the second half.
Yeah. They completely put a stop to us. Really, we had very few chances outside of the ones in the time added on.
So,
where do
you think? I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about, or whether we'll get into villain/man of the match of the piece.
I think it's worth noting I think we're probably sort of on the cusp of being done now with playoffs. I think we're starting to be the wrong side of a gap for those playoff teams.
How many points are now? What, 6?
6 points from Oxford. We do have a game in hand.
Yeah.
But Plymouth...
it's been 6 points for a few weeks now, right?
But there's more team... I think it just seems like, it just feels like it's kind of... Like, I don't know. There's more time going. People are catching up with the games in hand and things like that. I don't know. Wigan is staggering. They're top of the league with 54 points, and they have 4 games in hand on some teams. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
The clip of Quest where they laugh at the journalists for saying that we're going to win it with 10 points or more is aging poorer every week. We've lost 3 out of 5.
Well, the thing that was frustrating for me was we had a great spell. We dropped down. We had a poor spell. Then we had a really good spell. And then, we've had a poor spell now. The thing that felt frustrating for me was I thought we deserved to be in the top 6 during that last good spell.
Yeah.
And it never materialized.
Yeah.
Which maybe speaks to, I think, a lack of fortune, but I also think it speaks to some of the strength of the teams above us. Frankly.
Yeah. Also, I mean, to get there now we'll need a staggeringly good run. We need a 5-6 wins in a row type streak to kind of start chewing up some of that ground. But I just don't. We've talked about the definition of madness. It's like, when do you stop feeling like there might be some consistency, there might be some dependability, there might be some, I don't know. It feels like we've got a team that should be able to produce 7 out of 10 performances every week. Like, they're good enough. We've got enough, even with injury crises, we've got enough players. And we're just not, we turn up and it's 5 or 4 too often. And there's not enough 9s or 10s to make up for. We seem to just be we're either really, really good or dreadful so often, and most of the time in the same game. There's just no consistent middle ground of just being all right, putting in decent performances, having a dependable way to play, and getting a set of results that make sense.
So have you given up on any hope of the playoffs?
No, I'm just starting to feel like, where's it coming from? Because Moore doesn't have it in him. He overthinks everything and breaks.
So if we're getting to the point of, consigning ourselves to a mid-table League One finish, hopefully, it could be worse, I guess.
I think we're good enough to avoid the daft end of things, but
the fourth tier of English football. What point do we give up on the Darren Moore vision? What is the Darren Moore vision?
Darren Moore vision was.
I know.
We play out from the back because that's how he thinks it should be. We should play.
That's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do. I don't know. It's been so disappointing since, I know Christmas was the games missed, but it feels like teams around us and teams above us have found themselves or found another gear, and it's just the same. It's just the same again and again. We get a little glimmer, a little modicum, we'll get a win, and then you're like, okay, maybe this is a thing. And no, it's not a thing. It's never a thing. Either because you never see that again, or we try it again and it doesn't work. Like, it should be good that we rename the same team 2 games running, but it's not for us, because I know we weren't going to get So and Mendes Lang we were not going to pull rabbits out of hats for a second week running. It just was not going to happen. And in a way, I thought we got lucky last week anyway, because we looked like we'd concede literally every time they got over the halfway line.
Yeah. And
that's what it was today as well. They looked so dangerous every time they got near us. Yeah, I don't know. So I also don't know why we're looking at another forward. I'd want a defender or a holding midfielder. We don't need another winger or another
nebulous forward.
Another nebulous forward is the last thing we need.
Mm-hmm.
If we'd kept a clean sheet, we would have won today. You shouldn't lose again. You shouldn't go away from home, score 2 goals and lose.
Yeah.
That's not. We don't need another attacker.
Well, I thought the local papers seem to say that we were, after Story signed, looking for someone else. But there hasn't been any other names. The only names we've had have been...
But we've only got so many places left in this. We've only got 1 loan left, haven't we?
We can have more loans. We just can't have them in the matchday squad, right? We can only have more than...
Right, yeah.
You can only have 5 in the matchday squad.
Yeah. So it's just we don't need another one of those to be a winger or forward.
But I think, like, in the post-match interview with Darren Moore, like, he seemed to say, "Look, everybody wants a defender,"
which is very
everybody
funny,
wants a
how
centre
many
back.
Januaries have we been told everybody wants a centre forward? How many times have we been there and then ended up with like the worst little bit of like gristle left at the butchers? Oh dear. Oh, it's weird. It's going to be a weird week to see what comes through the door or what doesn't come through the door. Should we put this week's game to bed in terms of villain? I suppose we've kind of been there. Is it Jayden Brown?
For me, it's Jayden Brown. I mean, do you have anyone else?
No, I think Jayden Brown's good. I think it's a good call. Jayden Brown plus the referee for missing the penalty and not booking Brannigan at any stage.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to have a player like Brannigan. That's what we should be looking for.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the bench, we've just not got anything to shut up shop on that bench. It'd be nice to have a Semedo type to bring on and just kind of close things off. Anyway, there we go. We've got Ipswich up next.
Goody, Ipswich, who've had a dog-awful start, but then are 2 points below us now.
Yes, yeah.
So they've risen from the depths of relegation.
Yep. Well, Ipswich and then Morecambe in a short space of time.
At least Ipswich are at Hillsborough. You know, at least they get to have a nice long journey.
I don't know. Have we been better at home? Is that the general vibe?
I don't know anymore.
I think we might be quite all right at home and bad away, but I don't know.
Sure, we'll see next week then, I guess.
I guess so.
Yeah.
We'll let people get back to their lives. We should just say, before we go, thank you to Tom O'Hack for some lovely feedback on the old Apple podcasts. Thank you for the 5-star review. Very kind of you. It does help in terms of other people finding the podcast as well. So thank you for that. And dangerously, I mean, we may have pushed even Tom O'Hack to the extremes with our digressions today, but dangerously he did say he enjoys the digressions away from Sheffield Wednesday occasionally as well.
Good. I hope you enjoy stories of Louie Anderson and
exactly.
Finder's crispy pancakes.
Exactly. But on that note, I'll say cheerio to you, Luke, and best of luck during the week, and cheerio to folks at home.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one. Bye-bye.